Let's talk about Joe Rogan. So, as many of you know, Joe Rogan has been in controversy for the last few months over his podcast, and Joe Rogan's always been not really a controversial figure, but well, sort of a controversial figure when it comes to the people he's brought on his podcast. And he's not really, I mean, he's somewhat of a political person, but not really necessarily like a political hack. He doesn't have this set political agenda that he's trying to push most of the time. And what he set out to do was have a conversation with people, an open dialogue, and is open to different perspectives. Now, what's happened over the last 2 years, we've been in a pandemic. And during the course of the pandemic, his position on the pandemic has shifted. Now, from the beginning, I guess he was, like, oh, this is crazy. We're in a pandemic. Wow, this is unprecedented, whatever. Over time, as vaccines rolled out and stuff like that, his position on the vaccine specifically, besides just the pandemic, he moved from California to Austin, Texas. So that is in and of itself a shift, even though Austin is a pretty liberal city. But moving from California to Texas was a move, and after that, his you could see the shift happening further within his ideology, I guess you would say. I don't think his whole entire ideology has changed as much from where it was, which is kind of progressive-ish ideology, kind of open libertarian progressive is what I would describe it. And that really hasn't changed that much. But what changed was the COVID stuff. Now the COVID stuff is going to cause all sorts of controversy because you're going to have the officials and the mainstream media and the established official narrative is going to be one thing, and anybody counter to that narrative, sometimes it's off the wall stuff talking about like vaccines going to turn you into a giant magnet, stuff like that. And then there's other people who are just more skeptical about it. There's different segments of skepticism. You have slight skepticism, heavier skepticism, and extreme skepticism. Now, the extreme people and even some of the heavier skepticism people, they're harder to get. If you're trying to convince them about the vaccine, a lot of them are just not going to be convinced, especially the people who are all the way gone. You're never going to convince them to take it. You're never going to convince them to do anything. And a lot of the majority of the population seems to be over the whole COVID situation as a whole, including me. I mean, I'm vaccinated. I got the booster shot, but I'm tired of the pandemic. I'm absolutely exhausted, and I know a lot of other people are very exhausted and want to see an end to this whole situation and want regular life back. But with that being said, this artist named Neil Young, he's a singer, famous singer. He threatened to take his music off Spotify, which he eventually did, if Spotify didn't remove Joe Rogan or do something about Joe Rogan, the whole Joe Rogan situation. And he said he doesn't want, he's not trying to censor anybody. He just doesn't agree with the stance that Joe Rogan has taken, and the people, more specifically the people that Joe Rogan has brought on his podcast. He brought Dr. Malone on. There's a few other people that he's brought on that have been like vaccine skeptics. The biggest one was Dr. Malone, which was somebody who did research and helped develop the mRNA technology that's used in the vaccine. He was somebody who was a part of that, and now he's gone like into this whole complete like just off the, like he's denouncing something that he helped develop. So that I don't know what happened. I don't know why he changed his mind. And he's pretty much a skeptic of the vaccine. And so they brought that on to Joe Rogan's pod. He brought him on the podcast, and that information that he was putting out there caused a humongous stir. There was people who were like, thank you for bringing this information out. Thank you for showing us this. And then there's other people who are like, this guy, you're causing misinformation. You're spreading misinformation. Now, when it comes to the whole vaccine and the whole COVID-19 situation, there are a lot of people who do spread just fake information, or they call it alternative information. But really, a lot of times it's either misinterpreted data or misinterpreted information that people take and spin it any sort of way. And then sometimes there is real like, hey, this is actually something different, or this is the data that's contrary to the mainstream narrative. And, that's fine. To me, that's fine. I think we should have more of a conversation rather than just shutting people down. Now, if people are getting killed because of this stuff, now there are people who will spread this stuff and die, like those radio hosts who were dying. There's multiple anti-vax radio hosts that have just died after catching COVID. They died from COVID. And that's a lot of people were like, oh, that's what you get for spreading misinformation. But that's happens to a lot of people. They will take this stuff and they say, we're not taking the vaccine, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. And they're in the category of people who should be taking the vaccine. Like, they have comorbidities, they might be a little overweight, might be sick, and they won't take it. And a lot of them will catch it and they end up in the hospital and they die. So that being said, Joe Rogan bringing these alternative points of view on, that's fine. To me, that's fine. But at the same time, he does have to be careful with everything that he does let onto his platform. Now, instead of shutting things down, because a lot of people like to shut each other down these days. Now, there's people on the right who will claim like they want free speech, but they do some of the same things. They don't like certain things being said. Now, I think it's better to have a dialogue, like other people have said. If you want to counter this narrative, when you try to shut somebody down after they put out a certain amount of information, the people who follow them, that's not going to stop them. That's not going to be like, oh, well, maybe we should, stop and listen to the experts. No, that's going to make them be like, they were telling the truth and you're trying to silence the truth. And that right there only reinforces that belief that they're on the path of truth, and they're finding like this secret information that you're trying to hide from everybody. And whether it's real or not, they think you're trying to hide something. So it's better to come on and have like a conversation. Similar to what Sanjay Gupta, he went on Joe Rogan's podcast, they had all back and forth, had a conversation. Doing that will get you further. Even if it, like Jon Stewart just said this, Jon Stewart said, even if it doesn't produce any fruit, it's still better to have that dialogue and conversation, because that kind of takes the guard down of people who feel like you, especially the experts and people in power, they feel like they're hiding something. So when you take their guard down by actually sitting down and having a conversation with somebody that, especially in the mainstream media sees Joe Rogan as kind of like this rogue actor that needs to be silenced. So if somebody from that area comes and sits down with him, that will be a lot more productive than just dropping him or canceling him. Everybody's always trying to cancel somebody. That's not that productive. Now, he can pick who he wants to have on his podcast or whatnot. But even if you're not having a face-to-face dialogue, if you want to put out alternative information, say, hey, this is why this is wrong. Explain why it's wrong. Don't just say it's wrong where the experts listen to us. Explain why it's wrong. Because I've seen that happen a lot of times. The people, I'll be watching CNN, somebody comes on and they're like, yeah, these people aren't listening to the experts, and they should just listen to the experts. But they never explain why something's wrong. They'll be like, that's just not right, that's incorrect, and blah, 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 whatever else. Listen to us. And a lot of times that just goes in one ear, right out the other. Because a lot of those people, they already think you're hiding something. They do not trust you. And even if you explain it, they might still not believe you, but at least you tried. And some of the people who might get the explanation, the people who are still gettable, those people, you will still be able to at least maybe pull them back. Like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's why. Okay, that's wrong. You explain it to me. But there are some people who you're just never going to get again. They're gone. They believe that, and they will believe that till the end, maybe. So, yeah, I think it's better to have a dialogue than canceling people and trying to deplatform and this, that, and the other. So that's all I got to say about this one. What do you guys think about it? Let me know in the comment sections below. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, like, comment, subscribe, like, whenever you do it, however you do it, wherever you do it, just do it. It's your boy Ray Black, and I'm out. Peace.